In the history of comic books and cinema, there have been very few villains as interesting and influential as the Joker, and Joaquin Phoenix's version of the Clown Prince of Crime is definitely one of the most intriguing. If you're expecting a big epic showdown between Batman and the Joker, you will not find it here. I love most of the Batman movies and storylines involving the Joker, but this one truly takes the supposed origin story of this villain in a dark and intriguing direction. It tells the story of Arthur Fleck, a lonely and damaged individual with a vivid imagination who works for a living as a clown while trying to maintain his sanity in a society that has basically abused him, shunned him, and pushed him to the edge. As you view the Joker, if you're getting a nostalgic vibe that you're watching an updated version of a gritty Scorsese classic like Taxi Driver or King of Comedy, you are not mistaken. Cinematographer Lawrence Sher has done a great job capturing the look and feel of the early 1980s, and though not too many big-budget movies use it nowadays, it was really cool to see our theater's entire 90-foot non-IMAX screen fully used, thanks to Joker being filmed in 1:8:1 ratio instead of 2:35:1 ratio. This taller 1:8:1 ratio also helped immerse the viewer in when some of the landscape shots of Gotham were used. Joker never lags or loses its unsettling pace thanks to the impressive manner that editor Jeff Groth and his team put this erratic story together. Like the Joker character, the story takes you in so many different directions throughout its 122-minute runtime. I've always been impressed with movies that are set decades earlier than when they were filmed, especially when they show heavily populated urban areas. They have to be very meticulous to ensure that every car, every costume, every prop, and every building reflects that time period. The location managers and scouts located the perfect areas to shoot. The set designers used piles of trash and grimy old apartments to effectively transform parts of New York and New Jersey into a filthy and crime-ridden version of Gotham City that would have made Travis Bickle feel right at home. Like the locations, the costumes are just as important to be able to sell the era where Joker took place. Costume designer Mark Bridges and his team knocked it out of the park by rejecting the commonly used over-the-top colors that are usually associated with movies set in the 80s, and instead went with more muted tones and drab attire to fit the mood. Of course, the one costume that stood out was the multicolored suit that Arthur put on finalizing his transformation into the Joker. On the other side of the coin, what would the Joker be like without his traditional green hair and white clown face? There have been numerous iterations of how the Joker has worn his makeup, from Jack Nicholson's permanent smile and toxic coloration to Heath Ledger's sinister, scarred, and slimy appearance. In Joker, the makeup artist decided to keep the makeup and look more grounded, which matched the more realistic tone of the film. The score was very dark and brooding throughout the entire movie, with a deep string style that actually reminded me of the Joker's music in The Dark Knight. This Joker's music was just a tad more melodic, but the score of both films leave you feeling unsettled and nervous, truly fitting the visual elements on the screen. Some of the songs were well chosen and fit the scenes, from classics like Smile, performed by Jimmy Durante, and That's Life and Send in the Clowns by Frank Sinatra. The one song I really would have changed was Gary Glitter's Rock and Roll Part 2, which was used in a very important scene. This scene, where Arthur has finally completed his transition into the Joker, could have easily been accomplished by any number of songs. Even though Gary Glitter's instrumental track has been a staple at sporting events for decades, it's both creepy and frankly inappropriate to continue to celebrate the music from a convicted pedophile. The sad thing is, the use of that one song ensures the licensing and royalty checks will continue to roll in for Gary Glitter. The sound was clear and expertly mastered. Every word of dialogue, even during some of the more chaotic moments, was crisp and clean. There are moments where subtle and quiet laughter is heard. When Arthur makes his first attempt at stand-up comedy, there is an air of mystery as to whether the audience was laughing at him, with him, or even laughing at all. The Dolby Atmos soundtrack also utilized sounds like a phone ringing in another room or people talking or shouting in another apartment in a very effective manner. So much so that it makes you wonder whether someone sitting rows behind you left the ringer on their phone, or whether they may be having a conversation. The brutal manner in which gunshots and other sounds are used effectively emphasizes the violence on screen. There are a few fight and chase scenes in Joker. They are all presented with such a sense of visceral realism that the audience can feel every punch, kick, and slam. Though this would technically be a comment on the cinematography, editing, and sound of the film, it bears recognition that the camera angles and sounds really drive home the brutality of each hit. Some of the best special effects are the ones you may never ever notice. With that, Joker did not create CGI superheroes or villains, but instead did a great job blending in city landscapes and buildings in Gotham that were never really there. They were actually blended in so seamlessly that you would never notice they are even there unless someone pointed them out to you. As great as Joker is overall, the area of acting is where this film truly shines. Joaquin Phoenix gives an Oscar-worthy performance, portraying the tortured, battered, and broken Arthur. In the opening scene, when Phoenix's hands tremble as he uses his fingers to forcefully stretch his smile open, you know you're going to be witnessing a powerful performance by a very talented actor. His layered and transformative performance is outstanding. He is convincing and believable as a mentally ill man who basically just wants to make a living, care for his mother, and eventually become a stand-up comedian. In this process, he is beaten, mocked, shunned by society, and he eventually cracks. I loved Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker and still believe his portrayal is my favorite. But Ledger played the Joker for the entirety of The Dark Knight. Joaquin Phoenix is Arthur Fleck throughout most of the film and eventually becomes the Joker. So comparing Ledger and Phoenix is a bit difficult. But if these two were competing for the same acting Oscar and I was a voter, my vote would go to Joaquin Phoenix. Todd Phillips, who is mostly known for his work on comedies like the Hangover trilogy, truly steps out of his comfort zone to delve more deeply into this psychological character study of Arthur Fleck. It's always nice to see a director be effective in genres they are not known for, and Phillips definitely proved this with the dark and interesting style he chose for Joker. Joker is not your typical comic book movie and is much more similar in style and substance to dark and gritty Scorsese classics rather than other DC superhero movies. It definitely has some connections to the Batman and Joker storyline, but their relationship has never been shown on screen like this. I believe their possible connection as presented in this film is the most intriguing yet. Some of Joker leaves us asking many questions days after we finish viewing it, and it may be interpreted in many different ways. Outside of one very disappointing song choice, Joker is a very powerful film that takes place in the past, yet is very reflective of issues that we are dealing with in modern times. Joker is very effective in showing how important it is that society and the government do not simply discard people with mental issues. The film also touches upon the ever-growing issue of income and wealth inequality, which is far worse now than it was in 1981 when this movie was set. There have been some controversies dealing with the subject matter and how it could inspire people who can empathize with Arthur to also lash out violently. During Joker's incredible $96 million opening weekend, no violent incidents were reported. Maybe this was due to armed security attending screenings, including the theater where we watched it, or maybe the entire controversy was overblown and we realized this powerful motion picture is an important wake-up call to help people who suffer from mental illnesses. Joker is an excellent motion picture and I give it a solid 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This is our first movie review. If you enjoyed it and want to see more categorical movie reviews, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.